All right, I'm back. We just finished number 5, so we're going to move on to number 7. We'll do the last 3 problems in this video. So I'll do the translation key since I have some time. So L is going to be Lexi is a good dog. R is going to be Rover is a good dog. And L, which we already have, so we'll have to do something else. Let's do Y for Lily. For Lily is a good dog. Okay. So it's very important that you don't use the same letter L for both of those sentences since they're different. All right. Okay. First premise is an if then. All right. So it's going to be a conditional. So break it down. Look, whatever comes after the if and before the then, that's the antecedent. So it's just plain old Lexi is a good dog. So L. Then the consequent, what comes after the then, so are both Rover and Lily. All right, so it's a conjunction. So are both Rover and Lily. So we need parentheses, R and Y. So if Lexi is a good dog, then Rover is a good dog and Lily is a good dog. Okay, next premise. It is not the case that, so that's the negation. We don't need to translate that. If Lexi is a good dog, we already have that sentence, then so is Fido. So we need a new sentence there for Fido is a good dog. And it is not the case that, okay, so everything after that we can put in brackets because it is not the case that applies to everything that comes after it. So it's going to be it is not the case that negation, parentheses, right? And in parentheses or in brackets here, what we have is a conditional. If Lexi is a good dog, then so is Fido. All right. So that it is not the case that applies to the whole conditional, not just to the antecedent. So the bracket or the parentheses here are essential. All right. Conclusion, therefore, Rover is a good dog. Simple. R. All right. So that's the argument translated. Put a line there and do the derivation. Okay. So again, look what you got. Look at where you're going. Okay, we're going to R. That's where we're trying to get to. Here's R here. So it's got to come out of here somehow. Here we've got a negation of a conditional. There's not really any rules that apply to negations of conditionals. And this isn't the consequent, so we can't do modus tollens, right? So what we need to do here is change this conditional to a disjunction. And we do that using the material conditional rule. So what the material conditional rule does is it adds or subtracts a negation to the left side, changes the conditional to a disjunction or vice versa, and the right side stays exactly as it is. All right. So for now, ignore the negation on the outside because we're just changing the inside of the parentheses. All right. We change the L to not L. Since it didn't have a negation, it gets one. We change the conditional to a disjunction, and we leave the right side exactly as it is, just F. All right. Now, since this is a substitution rule, substitution rules can be applied to parts of sentences. That's one of the big differences between substitution rules and the first kind of rule that we learned, right? The first kind of rules, like the elimination and introduction rules, they cannot be applied to parts of sentences. They can only be applied to whole sentences, meaning the main operator. But the substitution rules can be applied to parts of sentences. All right, so here we get this by material conditional of 2. My stupid computer makes a period every time I double space, so. All right, now we have a rule that deals with negations of disjunctions, namely the De Morgan's rule. So the De Morgan's rule pushes the negation in onto both sentences and changes the disjunction to a conjunction. So this one, since it already has 1, it's going to get 2. Change disjunction to conjunction. Second sentence gets 1. And that's by De Morgan's of 3. Again, you see we need R, so if we can get L, we can do a conditional elimination. We don't have L, but we can get not L by conjunction elimination of 4. And we can get L then by applying the double negation rule to 5. All right. So now that we have L, we have a conditional on line 1. We have its antecedent on line 6. So that means we can get its consequent. And that's the conditional elimination rule 1 and 6. All right. So the conditional elimination rule takes 2 inputs. This is one of the most common mistakes I'm seeing on homework, is the conditional elimination rule just one number after it, which is it always has to have 2 numbers because it always requires 2 inputs. So on line 1 up here, we have a conditional. That's one of the inputs we need. And on line 6, we have the antecedent of the conditional, L. So you need those 2 things anytime you do the conditional elimination rule. So it should always have 2 numbers after it. All right, and our conclusion is R, so we get that again by the conjunction elimination rule. All right, and that one's done. Okay, number 9. So moon is made of green cheese or yellow cheese only if Bob's theory about the solar system is correct. So we need M or G will make moon is made of green cheese. Y is moon is made of yellow cheese. And B for Bob's theory about the solar system is correct. Okay, so the first sentence is an only if sentence. And just like above with, which one was it? This one, only if, number 3. You have to remember for only if, you can just substitute the conditional, right, for only if and leave the rest of the sentence in the same order, right? So this then will be our antecedent. The moon is made of green cheese or green or yellow cheese. So that's a disjunction, G or Y. And then conditional for only if. And then what comes after the only if is going to be the consequent. Bob's theory about the solar system is correct. So that's just a atomic sentence. Okay, so now premise 2. Obviously, Bob's theory about the solar system is not correct. So that's just not B. All right. Notice that however and obviously aren't doing any work there, at least not logically. They don't affect the truth value. So the sentence is just the not B. All right, so now consequently, that's the conclusion indicator. So we'll do a backslash. The moon is not made out of green cheese, so not G. I'll put a line there. Okay, so now we have to do the derivation. Again, look where you're going, but also look what you've got. And we've got a pretty obvious move to make here since we have a conditional and the negation of the consequent. So remember what rule takes those 2 things as input is modus tollens. So when we have a conditional negation of the consequent, what does that give us as output? The negation of the antecedent. The whole antecedent. So that's why negation parentheses. All right. So now what? Well, again, we have a rule that deals with negations of disjunctions. It's called De Morgan's. It pushes in the negation onto both sentences and changes the disjunction to conjunction. So we got not G and not Y by De Morgan's of 3. And now it's a very simple step to get our conclusion, not G by itself, by conjunction elimination of 4. So again, De Morgan's is a substitution rule. That means you can apply it to parts of sentences. Here we apply it to the whole sentence. So the other major difference between substitution rules and the other kinds of rules is that they can go either way. All right. So this way, if we had started with not G and not Y, we could have gone to not parentheses G or Y. So since these two sentences are logically equivalent to each other, you can just substitute one for the other. All right. That's why it's called substitution rule. And that, since they're logically equivalent, they're exactly the same when it comes to truth value. And so you can put this one in for this one or this one in for this one, either way. All right, number 11, last odd numbered problem then. All right, so let's see. Either butter or I can't believe it's not butter is bad for your health. So let's say B stands for butter is bad for your health. Oops, I shouldn't have numbered that. Let's say C stands for I can't believe it's not butter is bad for your health. All right, and our first premise then is just that either or, right? Just a disjunction, so either B or C. So either butter is bad for your health, or I can't believe it's not butter is bad for your health. All right. Next sentence, butter is not bad for your health. So not B. Next sentence, furthermore, it is not the case that both. So this is a not both sentence, which remember is not both, like that, the negation of a conjunction. All right. So it's not the case that both I can't believe it's not butter and margarine are bad for your health. So we've got a new sentence. We've got to add a letter for it. M equals margarine is bad for your health. And oops, I'm dropping off the page. Let me just go all the way down there. Okay, so so it's not the case that both I can't believe it's not butter, so that's C, and margarine. So not parentheses C and M. Therefore, so conclusion now, margarine is not bad for your health, not M. Okay, so that's the argument translated. So if we look at our premises, there's a very easy move to make there, which is to get C by disjunction elimination of 1 and 2. If you have easy moves to make, you can make them, especially if you're kind of stuck, you're not sure how to proceed. Do whatever you can do. And another easy move here is to do the De Morgan's, which gives us not C or not M. Right, De Morgan's pushes in the negation, changes the and to or. So we get De Morgan's 3. And you see we need not M. Here is not M. To get not M out of a disjunction, we need disjunction elimination. But to do disjunction elimination, we need the negation of the other disjunct. So we need not C. We don't have that, but we have C, and we know with the double negation rule, we can get not C. And that is a necessary step. If you just tried to do a disjunction elimination with 4 and 5, that would be incorrect. All right, because you need the negation of one of the disjuncts, and C is not the negation of anything, but not C is. So that means we can then get not M by disjunction elimination of 5 and 6. So here's a disjunction. Here's the negation of one of the disjuncts. That gives us as output the other disjunct. And that's another rule I see mistakes on a lot. I see one number after disjunction elimination. But remember, you need two things. You need the disjunction, you need the negation of one of the disjuncts. All right, hope that helps. Feel free to post questions in the discussion forum if you have any questions on any of these problems I did or any of the even-numbered problems that are due for homework.